I had to make a decision. I could either be hurt by that and give up on it, or if I truly wanted this, to say, okay, I'll take what you said and I'll do something with it. So,
Hello, today I have with me Jon Morris from Chick-fil-A Golf Mill in Chicago, Illinois. I've known John for almost 2 years now. Actually started coaching him before his grand opening, but John has a lot of experience with Chick-fil-A. Actually, he was in the LDP program. He helped with the onboarding for Chick-fil-A operators. So a lot of people out there probably already know John. Looking forward to letting him tell his story. And at the point of this recording, he was celebrating his 1 year anniversary for his grand opening. So it's a special time for him, and I wanted to celebrate with him with this recording.
Welcome to Build Your Culture Brand with Dr. Jay Rains. As leaders, you have the ability to design and lead culture intentionally. Hear from culture leaders who are moving from a values list to values lived.
Hey, John, welcome to the Leaders Q podcast. We're calling this Lead with a Question. So great to have you on the show. What's your podcast vibe? So you got the true crime. Is there another type of podcast you like to listen to?
yeah, I love the true crime stuff because it kind of just sucks me in, and I want episode after episode after episode, and it's a nice escape from some of the stresses of the day. So if I'm not sucked into the true crime, I love something that'll make me laugh. I enjoy comedy podcasts. There's a very popular one called Smartless with Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and Sean Hayes, and they have a different celebrity guest each week, and it's really, really funny. So I tend to listen to that on my way to or from work quite a bit.
Also, a little bit more about you. I know currently you're a Chick-fil-A operator there in Chicago, and we're celebrating right now as we record this. We're celebrating your first year as an operator. So congratulations on
Thank you so
achieving
much.
that milestone in life. Yeah, absolutely. So it was fun to be with you on your grand opening and got to see your team. And we'll talk a little bit more about your team, but kind of going pre-operator. What was your journey, kind of getting into Chick-fil-A? Even deciding to become an operator.
I started with Chick-fil-A all the way back in 2005. I was 16 years old, and I worked for an operator in Pensacola, Florida, named Robert Barnes, who is still a fantastic operator today. So yeah, I worked for Robert my junior year of high school into my freshman year of college. And while I was in college, I left Chick-fil-A and I did a couple of other things, and ended up, I majored in college. I went to the University of West Florida. I majored in English and I did a double minor in education and Spanish because I wanted to be a teacher, which I did end up doing. When I graduated college, I started teaching sixth grade. So believe it or not, I was a sixth grade language arts teacher. I'm also I'm a statistic of new teachers who get out of it after 2 years of doing it. So uh, I kind of knew in between my first and second year of teaching, I got married, and right when I started my second year of teaching, I knew this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So it was my wife at that point who gently nudged me back into Chick-fil-A, and I came back to work for Robert just with kind of open hands. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Thought maybe I'd give Chick-fil-A a go and see what happens. And things just sort of took off from there. So I became his training director in the restaurant. That led to some cool opportunities with corporate, where I worked part time with corporate as a trainer, eventually leading to my wife and I moving to Atlanta in early 2014. And I joined the Chick-fil-A support center as corporate staff there in the training department. So while I was there, I helped lead new operator training, which was called, at the time, it was called FRL, Fundamentals of Restaurant Leadership. And we redesigned it to just be fundamentals. But in those 3 years, I rubbed shoulders and helped train pretty much every new operator in the chain. And it was during that time I caught the bug myself. I decided, hey, I want to be a Chick-fil-A operator. Um, and to get there, my wife and I did Chick-fil-A's internal program, LDP, which is the Leadership Development Program. So we traveled around the country, did it for almost 3 full years, really growing myself and learning to lead the business. And eventually that resulted in us moving to Chicago. I had one more year where I worked for an operator in the city while I was still in the interview process with Chick-fil-A, and then ended up getting selected for my restaurant in late 2020. So
Good for
I've done a little
you.
bit of everything.
You did it all, and now you're here at Chick-fil-A operator. That's awesome. You got to the end of LDP, and for some people they go right on into a Chick-fil-A, and then but that didn't work out that way for you. So there was tell us a little bit about that in between time and that commitment you made to Chicago. So how did you end up with a Chick-fil-A right after that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, Jay. I think I had kind of a misperception within the program that my story was going to play out like I had seen a lot of other folks' stories where, you do the program, you start interviewing with Chick-fil-A, you get selected for your restaurant, and then that selection determines your next step. And for me and my timeline, that just was not my story. Toward the end of my time in the program, I had to make peace with the reality that I was going to have what I called like a chapter two after LDP. I'd gotten some good feedback from Chick-fil-A, kind of some tough feedback about still some gaps that they saw with me and my candidacy. And I had to make a decision. I could either be hurt by that and give up on it, or if I truly wanted this, to say, okay, I'll take what you said and I'll do something with it. So for Lindsay and I, we decided to, move to where we wanted to be in business and where we wanted to live. And for us, that was Chicago. So we moved to Chicago, and I came on to work for an operator here in the city that strategically was very different than me and could help me with some of these quote unquote gaps that I needed to close, particularly with business acumen and strategic decision making from a business lens and all that kind of stuff. So that's what it looked like for us, and it really helped. I grew a ton. I worked for that operator for a year before I was selected for my restaurant. So
What a great story. And I can see how that really showed commitment to Chicago market, and that's where y'all wanted to be. So even before there were green dots that you were looking at or able to even apply for, you were already planning yourself there and showing a commitment to the market area, because you're from Florida, right? So what a commitment to move to that new area. So good for you.
right, yeah, we love it. It's the best city in the U.S. I don't care what anyone says.
Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, my wife and I love Chicago. So,
Yeah,
so here's another question, just kind of to think about. Here you are a year along as a Chick-fil-A operator, um, and you can reach back as far as you want to. But what are some ways that you manage stress? So it's probably, I can imagine, starting out in business, and as you and I've talked, that there have been some stressful moments, but how do you cope with that pressure on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis?
I think the biggest key for me, and I learned this the hard way, which we can get into, but the biggest key for me is to always keep the business in its proper place in terms of where it's prioritized in my heart and in my mind. Um, I care very deeply about my business. I want to be successful, but I learned the hard way not to make Chick-fil-A my God, not to make the business my God. And so it starts there. And if you have the right mindset about that, then you can layer in some other things that are what I call just having like some healthy rhythms that keep me grounded. So it's a few things for me. It's staying rooted in scripture, which I'm far from perfect in, but I find that gives me proper perspective day to day to manage the stresses and challenges that come. I do counseling still. I started that quite a few years ago when I went through a really hard time, and the frequency of my counseling appointments has gone down as I'm managing all of this a little bit better on my own. But I still do that monthly, which I enjoy. And some other habits kind of came out of that too. I had a counselor that recommended starting my day with some affirmations, just some reminders that keep me, grounded. So I just to show you guys, I have them here. I don't know if you can read them, but this
Oh,
is
very
my
cool.
my prayer diary. I write in, and
Yeah.
I'll just share a couple of these affirmations. So I start my day with these. A couple of them are scriptures. So one of them, this is the Lord speaking in Isaiah. He says, "As I have purposed, so it will be. And as I have planned it, so it will happen. So you got things that feel like out of control. It's a great reminder for me, like, no, as God has purposed, so it will be, and as He has planned it, so it will happen. There's another one I love that says, "Long before you face a problem, God already has a plan." Um, Nothing has ever once surprised you, talking to the Lord, and nothing has ever made you flinch. Um, Another scripture from Isaiah: "You will keep the mind that is dependent on you in perfect peace, for it is trusting in you." Um, so some of those are just, I mean, what a great way to start your day.
Right.
And so I do that. Um, I, Physical health is important to me, so staying on top of that and making that a regular part of my week keeps me mentally grounded.
Is the Peloton's behind you there? Does it hold closed really well, or do you actually like you hopping on that thing?
So what's funny is my wife uses the bike more. I really don't like to bike, but I still use the Peloton app for other workouts. I do strength workouts and running workouts at my gym. And they actually just came out with a great with the new iPhone update. There's a great widget that you can add to your lock screen that keeps a goal tracker for weekly workouts. So I
Oh,
worked
wow.
out. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, I worked out on Monday and I worked out this morning, so it's showing little check marks on those days, and I really like that motivation.
That's
So
good.
yeah, fitness is important, and I would say lastly too, just having fun. That's something I did not do a good job of for many years, in this ditch that I fell into, where the business became my god. Um, but yeah, taking some time out, going to have fun. Like I said earlier, having something on the calendar to look forward to is really important, and managing stress as well.
We know, John, over the last couple of years, we've all, I hope, become a little bit more aware of just the emotional challenges of being in business and life itself. I mean, there's just been so much going on, and you've been very open about your story, through LDP, just that moment in time where you really had to pull back, and you said some things out loud that a lot of people, I think, would maybe try to keep to themselves and try to keep uh, secret or whatever. Tell me a little bit about that. Why was it important to say it out loud? Why is it important to say it out loud now?
Yeah, just for some context, this happened right about the halfway point in our time on the road. I got to a point where I was really struggling with more than just like, oh, I'm stressed out. I mean, there were some physical and spiritual and emotional struggles I was going through, with depression and anxiety, that were affecting my everyday life, and they were affecting my effectiveness, in the business. So, yeah, um, I had to just be honest with people and say, hey, I'm not well. Like, this is, I'm not in a good place. I need some time, um, to get better. And so, yeah, I took some medical leave for that while I was in the program, and started a lot of this work of things that I just talked about. I started counseling for a time. I was on some antidepressants, and I don't take those anymore, but they were needed for a season in my life.
Sure, yeah.
And it was something I really struggled with, the fear of what people will think of me, um, because this is, anywhere in business, when you're saying, hey, I want to be a CEO, I want to be an entrepreneur, um, you kind of want to present like a strong face to the world, and in my
Sure,
case, I'm
right,
interviewing to be a Chick-fil-A franchisee. I'm
right.
wanting to present a strong face to Chick-fil-A. So I really worried about, how will this affect people's perception of me? Will they think I can handle it? And, I've talked to a lot of operators that have been open with me and have said, hey, that's a ditch I fell into, during my first year as an operator, or my fifth year as an operator. Um, and I don't really think anyone's immune to it. It just, I'm grateful in hindsight that I went through that when I did, because I learned a lot, and I think it helped me build a healthy foundation to navigate the complexities and the challenges of business. So, I went into that initially very fearful, and then through my interview process, I was able to confidently tell Chick-fil-A, I said, hey, I don't think that situation should undermine your confidence in me as an operator. I would hope that it would bolster your confidence in me as an operator, because I learned to put the business in its proper place, and I learned how to lead myself well so I can be effective. So,
Well, obviously they saw that and they really did. I mean, what a
mhm,
brave thing to do. How courageous that is to just say that out loud, but then also talk about the strategies you're using to not get there again, or and to, like you said, do
mhm,
these daily affirmations and really work on how you're doing every day. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope it's an encouragement to somebody
yeah,
out there that may be in that ditch right now. Just find somebody.
for
Doesn't,
sure.
you don't have to tell everybody, but tell somebody, talk to somebody about what's going on
Hmm.
in your life.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
What has felt, especially in this first year, what has felt like a failure maybe at the time that ended up propelling you forward?
Yeah, for me, I think the clearest example I can think of that, um, is losing some quote unquote important people, in my business within the first year. I When I was hiring for a grand opening, my strategy was to go big, to overhire. Um, and quite frankly, when I had someone I interviewed that had leadership experience that I liked, or potential for leadership, I hired them. I didn't compromise on any of my values, or what I thought of them, but I kind of stacked my deck with leaders. And out of the initial six that started with me, I have two of those people left. And so, the other four left for various reasons. I had some go on good terms. I had a couple go on bad terms. I terminated one. And in the moment, those definitely feel like failures. I question myself a lot. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, is there something I could do differently? But in each of those cases, I'll tell you, on the other side of it, I kind of felt like it was addition by subtraction, that there was something that got kind of like unlocked, or a clog in the drain that got undone, in terms of the quality of the operation, or the culture in the room, or what have you, or the ability for my other leaders to step forward, who were really committed and wanted more responsibility. And so, yeah, I would say that, losing some people, that in the end it was actually a good thing, and helped propel us forward.
Well, John, one of the things I love about your team, as I've been coaching you and getting to know your leaders too, um, is this multicultural. I guess this part of Chicago is just really
Mhm.
amazing how there's so many different cultures that have kind of come into that part of town, and um, that you've had an opportunity to bring people from the nations, the world to work on your team. And so I love that. I love how that's building kind of the culture that you have there at your location. So
Yeah.
um so from that, maybe, that international culture flavor, but also from the culture standpoint of the team that you're trying to build, what are some things that you want your team to feel when they're on the team at your location?
Yeah. I mean, it's true, Jay. We have an incredibly diverse team. I was going through our payroll list the other day and counting up some countries, and I think currently we have about 12 countries represented on our team.
Wow.
Quite a few different languages spoken across the restaurant, and it is one of the coolest things about our business. I think I love that aspect. From a culture standpoint, that's been a big focus in this first year. And I think it starts for me even with our mission for the restaurant, that I teach an orientation of my team, and we go over it. It's really simple. Like, our mission is just to be the beloved restaurant and workplace in the community. Um, so if you break that down, it's I want my guests to say I love that Chick-fil-A, and I want my team to say I love working there. Um, and I think some of the ways we go about that are, I'm very big with my leaders on, your leadership is, it's like the hard skills of leadership, the the cash management and accounting the drawers and the ordering truck and all these hard skills. But the other half is your people skills. It's not soft skills. I heard Simon Sinek say one time, like, I hate that phrase, soft skills. There's nothing soft about it, but it's your people skills. And I really try to work with my leaders a lot on developing that side of their leadership. Like, how are you speaking to your team? Like, how are you motivating them? How are you making it a fun place to work, um, day in and day out? So that's been huge in our first year, I think, in trying to instill the culture, and then celebrating too. We introduced some core values to our team. We use an acronym called COOPS with an H in it. So it's care and kindness, ownership, others first, hustle, positive attitude, and striving for better.
I love that.
And
It's
those
good.
core values, again, yeah, thank you. It's an easy way to remember. I think, like chicken coop, but we had a little H in there. And um, if you surveyed my team, they're probably not going to be able to recite them.
Okay,
But
okay, I'll
I think
I'll
the
wait.
I think yeah, hold off on that. But I think the important thing is that we live them day in and day out, and we call them out when we see them. So we do a monthly employee of the month, but we call it rock star of the month. And I started this at a restaurant in Florida, but I bought these like 80s hair metal wigs. We have a blonde one and a black one, so they look like they're from Def Leppard or Poison or something. But they have to wear that when we award them with Rockstar of the Month, and then they get an inflatable guitar along with a gift card. So, and we select those people based on like who has really exemplified our core values in a big way this last month. So all those things together, I think, kind of tie into what we call culture in the restaurant, trying to keep that strong.
I love it. I want to see. I haven't seen those pictures. I want to see those pictures. Do you put them on Instagram, or are they just more internal?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes we embarrass them publicly and we'll post it, on our social media channels. But we, yeah, we'll post it in our internal team communication app, and we also print it out, and we have a wall in the break room with all of our rock stars from the last year.
The
So,
wall of rock star fame. That's good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, hey, John, one other question. As we think about this is your first year and we're kind of come to that, now you're looking at your second year, but for the operator that just got selected or is thinking about kind of getting into this, what would you say would be a couple of pieces of advice for someone who's about to start their first year as a Chick-fil-A operator?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think my first piece of advice kind of depends on your background and where you're coming from. I'm very proud of starting with an external operator. My home operator, Robert, was in the furniture business before starting Chick-fil-A, and I
Okay.
have so much admiration um, for what he was able to do and what he still does in his business. I do think that a hurdle that can be especially tough for an external operator is just coming to grips with the reality of what this is going to require of you. Um, I, I honestly laugh when I talk to people who, they may just be dipping their toes in the water, being interested in Chick Fil A, and they'll say something to the effect of, "Oh, I've been wanting to invest in one of those, or I've been wanting to, buy one of those," and you just kind of scratch your head and think like, you don't get it. Like, this is not something you invest in. It's not something you buy. There's a reason we're called an operator, and it takes so much time, so much energy, so much grit, um, determination, and it's just a ton of pressure. And so, for someone starting their first year, I think that kind of sounds like bad news bears, but it's sort of just like, know what you're getting into and be prepared to live there for a while. No operator is exempt from that, as you're starting out in business, and you want to elevate, in a smart way, and begin to work on the business. But there's a season for everybody, and those seasons even come around where you have to work in your business and you have to be there. Um, and for new operators, you have to be there for long days and long hours. So, to be ready for that, I would say is my first piece of advice. Um, Secondly, I would encourage people. to, like, take some of the pressure off yourself. I had talked previously about how I measure success. Um, and I think if you're wired for excellence, or if you are an external to Chick-fil-A, just getting into it, either way, you kind of have this like, oh my gosh, I gotta make Chick-fil-A proud. Like, I gotta get this thing to be like the capital C Chick-fil-A that everybody knows. And it takes time. Like, your drive-through is going to be slow. Like, you're going to have food quality issues. Like, the team's still learning what color bags the nuggets come in, like 3 to 4 weeks in business. So,
Yeah.
um, you have to take some pressure off yourself and understand, like, it's going to be okay. Like, we're not going to be perfect right out of the gate. I'd give that piece of advice too. And I guess lastly, I would say, when it comes to the best and most difficult part of this business, which is people, um, do your best to build a solid culture and make it a great place to work. But don't be surprised or take it personal when you have turnover. Um, we've been really fortunate. I count as success for myself that we're a year in business, and we still have around 40 of our original 100 who were on the team. Um, and so that's great, but I never want to rest on my laurels there. I mean, I had a high schooler that we really love, and she's been with us a year. She put in her notice yesterday and wants to go work somewhere else. And you know, I'm trying not to take that stuff personally still, but I think you just have to understand that's the industry we're in. Um, you do your best, but no, like, people are going to move on and do some different things. So.
That's good. Good advice. You know, you were talking the first part of that. You were talking about how there is this expectation because the way Chick-fil-A is set up, the way the operator agreement is set up, you're not buying a bunch of Chick-fil-A's and then just sitting back as an investor. Truett Cathy, his original idea was an owner operator is in the business and he's got to make the most out of the one opportunity he's given. In fact, I don't know that Truett ever really necessarily wanted it to go beyond one location or for sure two or
No,
three.
he
And
he didn't. He came around to the idea, but the heart of it, he still wants that engaged operator in the restaurant.
right. And so I think that's such a powerful thing. And that's probably why Chick-fil-A is the brand that it is, partly is because, not just because food's great or whatever, but the people really need that investment and they need that top leader, the owner, showing investment and being there for them and building that culture. So in so many ways, you're not only the CEO, you're really the chief culture officer for your team. And I've seen you
Yeah,
do that, and you do that
yeah.
with excellence, John.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
But side note, one of my operator friends, I was talking to him. I mentioned that I was doing this recording, and he said, did you know that he's a former like rock star, he has an album. I mean, he's like a music guy, and he saw you, I guess, you were doing a little concert somewhere, and just happened to see you there. So I actually Googled your name and found your former album. So kudos to
There
you.
you
You're
go.
also former pop star.
Yeah, yeah. There was a brief time in my life where I tried to see if I could make a living making music, and that didn't work. But I did along the way. I had recorded some home studio albums with my friend's equipment for quite a few years, and then I did a full-fledged professional album in Nashville. Had a producer, all the studio musicians, the whole thing, and it was awesome. So that came out about 10 years ago now in 2012, and just a little 5-song EP. It's no longer on streaming, but I have hundreds of compact discs in my closet for anybody who ever wants a copy. Just email me.
Put them on Amazon, put them on eBay. That's right. That's
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
awesome. Well, John, we're going to put this out there for the world. I hope it's an encouragement to other people. Thanks for being vulnerable and also for giving some great advice about just the LDP journey, that first year as an operator journey, and then this culture piece about how do we build a team that is unique. I mean, you've got great operators right around you, but yet your culture is always, it's just going to be different. Every location just seems to have its own different flavor, different way. So thanks for sharing about all that with us, and looking forward to. So this is one of our early recordings. I told you, I said, when I get good at this, I want to have you back, and so we'll have to do
Yeah,
this again and revisit
for
when
sure.
you're further down the road. So thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Build Your Culture Brand with Dr. Jay Rains. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Visit our website at buildyourculturebrand.com for our free culture brand assessment. See you next time. We would like to note that Leaders Q serves individual owner-operators and their teams and is not affiliated, endorsed by, or in any way officially connected with Chick-fil-A Incorporated.